we focus so much on protein and how much of that we're getting, or how many calories we're getting and how much fat we're getting, or specific vitamins. But we actually miss that there are different tastes of food and what the physiological effects are from those different tastes. Welcome to the Wisdom of the Body podcast. I'm your host, Heather Grzych. Here, we talk about the profound connection between mind, body, and spirit. Join me and other authors, wellness experts, and everyday individuals talk about the importance of listening to our bodies, trusting our guts, and living in deeper harmony with nature. So, whether you're seeking guidance on your wellness journey or simply looking for inspiration, you're in the right place. We're thrilled to be in the top 3% of podcasts globally. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and most other places where people listen to podcasts. You can follow by joining my email list at heathergrzych.com or by following me on Instagram at Heather Grzych. That's Heather, Grzych. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. Hey, the topics in this podcast episode are in no way intended to be medical advice. Should you have any questions about anything discussed in this podcast episode, please reach out to your medical doctor or other healthcare professional. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Wisdom of the Body podcast. I'm Heather Grzych, and today we're diving into a topic that I think is crucial for anybody interested in using natural wellness tools like herbal medicine. And I want you to understand why using broad stroke herbal formulas like women's formula can actually be misleading. And I want to teach you how to truly grasp the nature of herbs for their effective use. And even though it's not a widely used herb in Ayurveda, I might teach you something today about marijuana that you might not have known before. Just a small part of what we're going to talk about today. But in the world of herbal medicine, you might have come across formulas, walking into Whole Foods or your favorite natural grocery store or searching on Amazon. You might find formulas that are called women's formula or digestive support or digestive tonic or formula or something like that. They're very common terms that a lot of herbal products companies make. And these broad classifications sound really good. Like, yes, I'm a woman, I need that. Or yes, I have a digestive problem, I need that. And they can actually cause more confusion than help because they're not really specifically named. And this is because each herb has its own individual effect. And then when you mix it with other herbs, it's going to have a different effect. And the herbs counterbalance each other, the different properties, they have different chemical effects when you combine them. So whether you're using, though, a single herb or a formula, you need to know what it's going to do. And not just that it can improve digestion. You want to know what kind of digestion can it improve? Like, does it improve the dryness of a gut? Does it cause you to have fewer loose stools? If something says it's going to give you better digestion, does that mean it's going to increase or decrease the gut motility, right? Everybody knows that coffee helps increase your gut motility. Well, there are other herbs that do that as well. Well, coffee's not technically an herb, but I think a lot of people use it like an herb. So there's other properties as well, like hydrating a gut or drying it out. So each thing that you take in, whether it's a food or an herb, has a very specific effect on the gut, and then it affects the gut, and then your body, the periphery of your body, receives the biochemical change and the material from that as well. And so it affects the periphery of the body too, not just the gut. So if you take something that says digestive support, it's not just going to affect your digestive tract either. But you should know that when you're taking something, what specifically it's going to do. Something like women's formula, if that formula was put together and intended to give somebody more blood flow to their uterus, to get, more blood flow in their period or in their pelvic area, that might not necessarily be a good thing for somebody to take when they already have very heavy periods. Or if something has a cleansing effect, a digestive cleansing effect that may act as a laxative, you don't want to take that if you're already having a bunch of loose stools that might cause more irritation in the gut if it's not handled appropriately. So you want to know what's happening in a body now and what the herb is going to do to it. And I wish we were all taught about herbs growing up in school. One of my good friends actually grew up in Russia and had a whole semester class on herbs. I don't remember what grade she said it was in. And regardless of whatever country this idea comes from and how you feel about that government, I think it's a really good idea to teach kids growing up about herbs, especially at that young age. I'd love to see something like that as part of a school curriculum, starting actually like in elementary or middle school. So if any of you are listening and you want to make that happen, please reach out to me because I'd love to see that happen. And I think it's important for more people to learn about herbs because not only is it essential for their effective and their safe use, but it's also better for the environment for more people to learn about herbs. When we know whether something is actually going to work for us and we become very targeted in our use of something, it doesn't waste it. It just uses the right amount. We don't waste the herb. We don't waste our energy in the wrong place. And if we don't know, we just start taking something because somebody else said it was healthy. We don't actually know if it's good for us. We might waste our time a little bit. We could actually even create a problem if it's really not a good herb for us. So let's unpack what you need to know about herbs. Let's explore their attributes and how they can guide you in choosing the right one for your needs. So today I'm going to cover a few things that you need to know about herbs rather than just hearing that it's healthy or it improves digestion or memory or women's health or something like that. Getting rid of these superficial labels and starting to understand what these herbs actually do and what their nature is. So we'll cover 9 different things that we look at in Ayurveda when we're evaluating whether an herb is good for someone, and try to learn what these are when you're exploring an herb or any substance for that matter, any food, because food is medicine. And you'll be able to predict what that thing you're taking into your body might do to you. Now, learning this, what I'm going to teach today, it doesn't qualify you to make herbal recommendations to other people because there's just a lot more to learn, including how to evaluate people to make the right recommendation. Because one herb isn't appropriate for every single person. There's not one herb that you could say, yes, everybody should take this, despite when people call something healthy, because we all have different constitutional types and health conditions and health history. So those are the things that we actually study in the clinical practice of Ayurveda. And there are many trainings for these in the United States if this is something that you want to pursue. But you can experiment on yourself all you want. Most of the herbs I'm going to talk about today, perfectly legal in most places in the United States. I think the only herb I'll talk about today that may not be legal is marijuana, but most of the other ones are. And there are a few that are banned in other countries that I'll talk about today. But you can experiment on yourself. You can buy them in many places. So go for it. And I think if you have the body awareness to test something out and the discipline and the sense to understand when something is not working and to stop it, then I think it's a really great way to learn. Because even though I studied herbs through books and, my teachers taught me about herbs for 3.5 years, I prefer, in addition to whatever learning I'm getting that I'm memorizing and that my teachers are telling me, I will actually try the herbs myself and to understand what kind of effect they might have on the body. I don't take herbs that I know are bad for me, but at some point I've been able to try most of the herbs actually that I recommend to my clients to learn about their effects. And that's been really cool. I definitely wouldn't do that if I was a medical doctor and was prescribing, serious hardcore pharmaceuticals for people. I don't think I would take that same approach. Okay, so let's get into it. If you're interested in learning more about herbs or Ayurveda after this, then you can reach out to me for resources on that. So the first thing that we look at when we are looking at herbs, one thing is you want to know what exact herb you're talking about, because there are herbs used in different countries and people call them different things. And so you want to make sure you have the right herb. And even in Ayurveda, we use a lot of the Sanskrit terminology for herbs, sometimes English terminology, but you never go wrong making sure you got the right herb that you want to be taking. So understanding the scientific name of that herb that is universally used across the world, which is going to be a Latin name. And so, for example, every herb has a scientific name for that particular plant. So say the plant holy basil or tulsi, you might have heard it as. It's a very popular tea. Well, that scientific name is Ocimum tenuiflorum, and it's different parts of it are used. We're very familiar with the leaf that is used, but the seed actually has a totally different medicinal effect than the leaf. So the leaves of this herb are used for like warming effects or to liquefy mucus from the chest or the respiratory tract, while the seeds, which actually look like bigger versions of chia seeds, if you've ever seen them, they actually have totally different effects. They're more cooling effect on the body. Super fascinating stuff. So one thing you want to know is the scientific name, and you want to know the parts used. So be very specific about what it is that you're using, which plant and what part of it. The next thing you want to learn about is what we say the guna, or the qualities of the herb. And so these are your features, qualities like, the inherent nature of the herb. So is it heavy, or is it light, or is it dense, or is it dry or oily? Does it create a stillness and static effect, or does it create mobility? So for instance, turmeric, which is curcuma longa, is known for its light and slightly oily qualities. And these qualities can affect the body's balance. So it's important in relation to your unique constitution and current health conditions for you to know where you're at when you take an herb. Does it make sense for me to take something that's light and slightly oily? Some bodies need more of a heavy quality for balance, while others need more light, and some need more drying effect versus oiling. So you want to know the qualities of the herb. And then you want to know the rasa, or the taste. And you can take any spice out of your spice cabinet and try them and get a sense of what it tastes like. This plays a significant role in therapeutic effects. Herbs can be sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, or astringent, as can food. Those are the 6 tastes from all food, not just herbs. And now something like that's very bitter, like neem, is known for its detoxifying, its cooling effect on the body, anti-inflammatory effect. And things that are very bitter tend to have that effect. So if you understand the taste in predicting how an herb might interact with your digestive system and your overall health, then it'll help you understand the nature of that herb. I actually wrote a section in my book in the Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility. And it's something I wish everybody knew about their food and their herbs, is what each of the tastes does to the body. That's a whole separate discussion. We focus so much on protein and how much of that we're getting, or how many calories we're getting, and how much fat we're getting, or specific vitamins. But we actually miss that there are different tastes of food and what the physiological effects are from those different tastes. And yeah, I think animals kind of have this sense that is way more, it's been unbroken, this understanding of how a taste of something affects us. They use their senses more than we do as humans for various reasons. And when you meditate on this and you start to learn about it, you really become more intuitive yourself in making your choices. I think if more people paid attention to stuff like this, then we'd have far fewer food intolerances. People make a lot of decisions with their brain more so than how their body feels with it, Okay. So the next thing you want to think about when you have an herb that you're considering trying is the potency of the herb. And this is usually a heating or a cooling effect that the herb is going to have. That's how we classify it. So ginger has a heating effect, and that can also stimulate your digestion and your circulation. And something on the other hand, like aloe vera, has a very cooling effect, and that can soothe your inflammation. So if you take something heating in, it can make your inflammation worse. If you take something cooling in, it can make it better. And I do think the degree of cooling versus heating matters, actually, because I think if something is very cooling like ice, it can actually end up having sort of a burning effect, right? So the potency, whether something is heating or cooling, can guide you in matching herbs with your current physical state. And I'll say that most of the kitchen spices that you have in your closet, go look, are on the warming side or the heating side. So think of things like salt, basil, pepper, thyme, chili, garlic, fenugreek. These are all heating. And FYI, this is where the marijuana comes in. Marijuana is a healing substance. The flower of marijuana is a heating virya. And a lot of people don't realize that. So if you're dealing with inflammatory issues and you're consuming marijuana regularly, that might not actually help very well with that. It might cause some other side effects that you're not thinking of, which is really against the whole point. Because I know a lot of people go to herbs because they don't want side effects. But if you take the wrong herb, you're going to get a side effect. Marijuana is a whole separate conversation, but I just wanted you to know that marijuana is actually quite heating. Back to kitchen spices. A few of them are cooling, like coriander and dill, but most of them are heating. And then you want to learn about this thing we call vipaka, or the post-digestive effect. So when you take something into your mouth, which you can take herbs in different ways. You can smoke them, you can snort them, you can put them in an enema. There's so many different ways you can take in an herb, but the most common way that you take in an herb is through the mouth, orally, either through a tea or in food. Some people take them in tablets or capsules or something like that. But the vipaka, this post-digestive effect, is what happens to that substance after it's gone through the entire digestive tract. So when it goes through the digestive tract, it's met with a whole bunch of things that happen along the way that get dumped into the digestive tract in a little sort of chemistry set, and it mixes with the herbs. So whatever gets dumped into the digestive tract, whether it's food, whether it's bile or other things that your body squirts into it, it's like a little chemistry set. And at the end of that, there is a post-digestive effect. So by the time it gets down to your large intestine, it might be sweet, sour, or pungent. Those are the three types of vipakas. So an herb like licorice, it supports, and it's sweet. It has a sweet vipaka. So by the time it gets all the way down to the end of digestive tract, it's going to still have nourished that digestive tract the whole way through, because sweet is nourishing. And another herb like cinnamon actually might have a sweet taste initially, also a little spicy, and pungent, which we say pungent is spicy. But by the time it gets to the end of the digestive tract, the sweetness is going to be gone and you're going to be left with pungent. So the post-digestive effect. And that's helpful to know about when you say you have inflammation going on in the colon, which is your large intestine. You want to think about these things, because if you're taking something to soothe it, you want to know, well, what's it going to feel like by the time it gets down there? Yeah, so I find this one's a really helpful thing that a lot of people don't think about. This is the vipaka of the post-digestive effect, and also, what it's doing to the body after it gets all the way down there. Then you want to know the action of the herb, because every herb has specific actions or therapeutic effects. And these actions can include things like anti-inflammatory or diuretic action, or a sedative action, or an analgesic action, which is like a pain relieving action, or a stimulant, a carminative, which helps you dispel gas, a diaphoretic, which helps you sweat more easily. And so these are examples of some of the actions of an herb, something it might do to you, or we would say the action or the karma of the herb, because karma actually means action, not what we have sort of spun it into in the US. So the karma, the action of the herb, is something. It does something to you. So for example, raspberry leaf, which is a very common herb that's in women's formulas, Rubus ides, it might be known for being a woman's formula, but it's actually nutritive. It's constipative, so it's binding to your digestive tract, and it's anti-inflammatory, and it's a hemostat, so it helps with excess bleeding, and it boosts oxytocin. So if you don't know what it does and you just hear it's in women's formula, then and you're constipated, it might not be a good idea to take that one, but you don't know, because you don't know that herb does that. And so maybe another herb like Himalayan cedar, which we call Devadaru in Sanskrit, and Cedrus deodara is the botanical name for that. That one's renowned for its calming effect and its sedative effect, specifically on the uterus. So if somebody's having cramps, really bad menstrual cramps, that can be a very handy one for somebody to take. Yeah. So the action, you want to know what it does. What is the action? And what part of the body does it do that action on? Because some herbs have an affinity for certain tissues. All right. Then you want to know the dosage. So you want to know how much of it you should take. And it depends on various factors: how large your body is, how strong your metabolism is, what your health condition is, the form in which it's taken. And it's very important to follow dosage guidelines that are provided by your practitioner, because you want to avoid adverse health effects. That's the whole reason you're taking herbs in the first place, right? And you want to achieve the desired outcome. So the assimilation of your herb is going to change depending on whether you take it in a fasted state or with food as well. So it's going to change also if you take it with food versus before or after food. They all have different effects depending on when you take it. So when you take the herb matters, as well as how much of it you're taking. And then the last thing I think you really want to know about an herb is what it's used for. And I think this is where the herbal products companies do a really great job in saying, oh, this is used for memory support, like Brahmi Bacopa, for example. That's an herb. Bacopa monnieri is a scientific name. Somebody came up with this term called nootropic. You've probably heard of it if you're interested in herbs. And this is considered one of the nootropics. We call it Medya Rasayana, like mind rejuvenators in Ayurveda. So it's commonly used for memory support. And so that's a use of it to support your memory. But a contraindication of this particular herb is it actually increases blood flow to the brain. And so if you're prone to getting headaches, then you might not want to take this herb. And I would say it probably depends on the kind of headaches you're getting. But if you already are, having a lot of blood flow to the head, you may not want to increase that. So yeah, that's why knowing where a person's at is important. And knowing these contraindications is crucial to avoid those adverse reactions and side effects or interactions with other treatments you might be using. So it's hard to know if things are going to interact with each other. I wouldn't say there's very great documentation on this. There's some, but it's not great. But you don't want to interfere with drugs that you're already taking, and you don't want to double up on a substance, or you don't want to waste them. So you don't want to tax your body too much, and you also don't want to waste herbs. Some herbs actually do what a pharmaceutical does, because many pharmaceuticals originally came from plants, right? Most of them did. And so the herbs may be slightly less potent, or they might go after the problem in a slightly different way, have a slightly different chemical composition, and again, might be less potent. But you don't want to double up. You don't want to interfere with anything that your doctor is trying to do with you. But that being said, I get very discouraged when I hear that someone's taking a pharmaceutical that there may be a food or an herb that can do the trick just fine on. And I hate when people are on a medication that doesn't allow them to eat a healthy food, like a green veggie. A lot of people taking certain drugs can't eat certain green veggies for risk of something dangerous happening with the blood. But I would want to figure out how to eat the food and reduce the drug if that was possible, coordinating with your doctor, because I think food as medicine is very important. And I don't think we should just stay on drugs the rest of our lives if there's a possibility that we could get what we need from our food and heal. And again, I think you need to work on that with your doctor and any herbal practitioners that you're meeting with. I certainly would never tell you to get off your drugs without coordinating with your doctor. But I will say our mainstream medical system is not set up to help you learn about food, about medicine, or plants and herbs that you could use. So you're going to have to find other ways to learn about this stuff, friends. And be glad that you have modern medicine, because it's important and you're going to need it. But it's also, if you want to find less synthetic or harsh drugs, then you have to do the work. You have to do the research. You have to explore some new things, and you definitely have to change your behavior. And that's why it's empowering to learn about herbal medicine. And when you explore it, you're recognizing that you want to have greater agency in your health decisions. but we all just need to learn a little bit more about it, right? Before we play around too much. And you can work with someone who actually has studied it. So I would say, to wrap it up, don't be deceived by women's formulas. Look at the herbs in it and research them. Don't just say, oh, this is a women's formula, I should take this, or this is a mind support, I should take this. Learn about the herbs you're taking. They often oversimplify what's going on, and I think you can be more informed in your decisions and take these herbs more effectively. Maybe you've been taking something and you feel like it might not be doing what you thought it would, but let's look into that. So thank you for tuning into this episode of Wisdom of the Body podcast. I hope this little dive into understanding herbs helps you navigate the world of herbal medicine with more clarity and confidence. And if it feels like a teaser, like you want to know more, then go for it. It's a fun world when you learn about herbs. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring the wisdom of the body. Feel free to reach out with questions or share your experiences about herbal medicine. I'm always here to help you on your journey to holistic health. If you are embarking on a fertility journey and are ready to have your mind blown about what your body is really capable of and how it's impacted by the environment, then check out my book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility. You can actually download the introduction to the book for free on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Read the intro for free and then buy the rest of this fertility enlightening book pretty much anywhere books are sold. You want a full human experience when you seek a healthcare provider, and you don't want 15 minutes with someone who can't even try to find out the root cause of things because they're so overwhelmed themselves. You have a body, a mind, a heart, and dare I say it, even emotions. You're not crazy. Everything does affect you, and it's possible to feel better if you have the support you need. Set up an appointment with me to heal naturally. Go to heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. And meet me here next time on the Wisdom of the Body.